So we've passed the halfway point here in 2025. We are in August, and we've got July's data of what's going on here in the real estate market in Vancouver. And you've probably clicked on this video because of that exact reason. You're wondering what is going on here. It should come to no surprise, really, that prices have continued to trend downwards. There is some interesting facts going on here in the data. I've looked at it. Sales have actually increased, which is interesting. And so we're going to get into all of that. And then you can make a decision of what you think is going to be happening here over the next months and coming into the fall of 2025. And then we're going to finish off with what I think buyers and sellers, depending on what you're doing, should be doing as well. So let's get into stats here. And right off the get-go, we have all residential properties home price index. And so this is a big picture. This includes detached, attached, condos, all prices. And so as you can see here, we have a 3-month window. And so what I wanted to do here is just give you a picture into what's going on, not just 1 month, but a picture of 3 months so you can see what's trending and where things are heading. And so as we can see here in July, prices have continued to fall by 0.7% here. Then we have a little blurb here of what the real estate board here has said. Benchmark prices for all residential properties in Metro Vancouver is currently that. This represents a 2.7% decrease over July of last year. And so we're doing worse than last year. And then we're also doing worse as of the previous month. And so that's where prices are at right now of all residential properties. And now moving into new listings. So this is just like new activity that's hitting the market. And as you can see here, July, we actually have a little bit less than the previous month. But when you look Canada-wide, it's pretty statistical or pretty like seasonal. When summer or July and August come, you know, there's less people just wanting to do stuff. People are out having vacations, they're out doing stuff. And so it makes sense that there's new listings hitting the market. And I think part of it also is just because what we're seeing is that not many listings are selling either. And so people are like really questioning if they should be selling their property this year. And so that's kind of my thoughts on that. But as you can see, year over year, we do have more new listings that have hit the market. And then down here, we're talking about, this represents a 0.8% increase compared to last year. And then this was a 12.4% above the 10-year average. And so, you know, it's kind of nice having this 10-year average data here is that we are still significantly above the 10-year average. Then moving on to sales. And so this is what was interesting when I was alluding to before is that sales have actually come up from the previous month. But still, when you look at the year over year data, it's down quite a bit here. And so the one stat I want to bring out here is that this was a 13.9%, so just at the bottom here, below the 10-year seasonal average. We have more new listings, less sales. Let's move on to the next stat here, which is total inventory. And it's kind of painting a not so good picture here. And July here, when compared to the previous months, we have basically less inventory. So we had a real big, what you want to call it, an increase in June. And then essentially in July, a bunch of, you know, there was some more sales this past month, but also there was less listings. So my guess is that there's a lot of people taking their houses off the market. We are hearing of that as well because they've been on the market for a long time and they're just not getting the price they want. And so when it comes time to renew, they just don't. And so we are higher than last year, year over year, almost 20% higher. And then when you look at the, again, down at the bottom here, this is 40.2% above the 10-year seasonal average. And so if we just back up here a bit, we have a 40% above average for total inventory. We have almost a 14% above average for sales, or sorry, below average for sales. So we got a lot more inventory, a lot less sales, a lot new inventory. So that kind of goes with the new listings and listings in general. And the home price index, well, it doesn't give that stat there, but it's kind of painting a picture of what's happening here. And then now I want to get into the sales to active listings page here as well. And this kind of gives us an idea of whether it's a seller's market, a balanced market, or a buyer's market. And these stats are dictated by the board here and really just generally accepted Canada-wide, essentially. And so seller's market is 20% or higher. And so for easy figuring, if you had 100 homes on the market of active listings and 20 of them sold that month or more, it was technically a seller's market because there's lots of people wanting to buy. So sellers basically can almost name their price in a sense. But right now, as you can see in the data here, July, June, and May, we're hovering around that balanced market, which is kind of interesting in my opinion, because if you ask anybody, we're in a buyer's market. And so it'll be interesting to dig more into the stats here. And then balanced market is 12 to 20%, and then buyer's market is less. We were trending towards more of a buyer's market, but then that last July there, we had a lot more sales that came in. And so that's kind of pushed us a little bit more into a balanced market. But again, I don't trust it and I don't believe it. I truly believe that we are in a buyer's market here in Vancouver. And so now I wanted to get more into the specific stats of each region, because this is wide. This has had all the properties from residential to townhouses to condos all included. And so now I want to get more specific. So if that's you, you're looking at what's going on in your segment, depending on what you're doing, this is going to be important for you. And so detached houses, as we can see here, prices have continued to fall from May. We've seen around the same amount of sales happen month over month. And then these sales to active. So as you can see, we're in that 10% range. So now by their standards here, if we go back, how do I go back? Here we go. If we go back one, we can see that we're in the buyer's market for the detached housing market. And so just a little blurb down here, sales detached homes were 660. It's a 4.1 decrease from basically July of last year. Benchmark prices for this home is that number. This is a 3.6% decrease from July and a 1% decrease from compared to June. And so as we can see from the 3-month window here, we are slightly decreasing time over time. And so again, it's going to be interesting to see how far these prices go down here. Now we're moving on to attached homes. So we're thinking townhomes and row homes. And as you can see here as well, prices are continuing to decline. So May, 1,106,000, June, 1,103,000, July, just under 100,000. We've had less sales this past month, which is related into a slightly less sales to active listings ratio. So this is they're saying attached right now market is in a balanced market here. What does it say? This represents a 2.3% decrease from July and a 0.4% decrease when compared to June. And so attached markets, housing stats, they're doing the same thing as the detached. And so let's move on real quick to condos and apartments, just kind of round this one out here. As you can see as well, basically we're getting the same thing. Prices are going down. There's actually a bunch more sales in condo markets. So it's, in my opinion, people are just coming to the realization that like they need to sell because there's just so many condos on the market. It's actually, we have a flood of condos here in Vancouver. And even just with all the new construction, like there's so, like if you want a pre-sale, there's like endless amounts of pre-sales here in Vancouver. And it's kind of bumped up the sales to active ratio to make it more of a balanced market. But again, like if you're a buyer, you have plenty of choices. You can almost name your terms. It's just the biggest thing is, are the sellers willing to sell it for a price that the buyer's willing to pay for? And that's always the biggest problem here. And so just a little blurb here at the bottom here. This represents a 3.2% decrease from July. So we've had a 3.2% decrease from last year. So we are seeing prices continue to come down, and a 0.6% decrease compared to June. And so that's pretty much it for the detached, the attached, and the condo market. Depending on what you're in, that's going to really dictate what we're looking at here. And now I really wanted just to touch on what the real estate board is talking about here, because they come out with their own little blurb. And so let's just read this a little bit here. Sales recovery continues in July. Well, we've seen that, right? Sales are up a little bit. Home sales registered on the MLS across Metro Vancouver in July extended the early signs of recovery that emerged in June. Now down just 2% from July of last year. Again, we're trying to stay optimistic here, right? Look at the what's really going on here. And so the June data shows early signs of sales activity in region turning a corner. And these latest figures for July are confirming this emerging trend, said the director of economics. Although the Bank of Canada has held policy rates steady in July, and we've seen that, they've basically held the mortgage or the interest rates for quite some time here. This decision could help bolster sales activity, providing more certainty around borrowing costs at a time where economic uncertainty lingers due to ongoing trade negotiations with the USA. And so it just seems like everywhere people are talking about the trade negotiations as the big thing that that's providing this uncertainty that's lingering, right? So analysts in the historical data suggest downwards pressure on home prices can occur when ratio dips below 12%. So we've seen that the sales to active listings for a sustained period, while home prices often experience upwards pressure, surpassing 20% over several months. And so the data says that we're in a balanced market. And so, but as we can see in the numbers here, like they're continuing to go down. And so one would suggest or think that we're less than 12% because of what's happening with home prices. With the rate of homes coming onto the market holding steady in July, the inventory of homes available for sale has stabilized around 17,000. This level of inventory provides buyers plenty of selection to choose from. This is true. Although sales activity is now recovering, this healthy level of inventory is sufficient to keep home prices trending sideways over the short term as supply and demand remain relatively balanced. However, if the recovery in sales activity accelerates, these favorable conditions for home buyers may begin slowly slipping away as inventory level declines and home sellers gain more bargaining power. It's just always interesting, like the underlying narrative behind these real estate boards and what they try and pump out. Of course, if that happens, then yeah, there's going to be favorable terms for sellers, but I just don't see it. I don't see it happening here for the next little while. Now, this is just a quick shot, bird's eye view of like where home prices have been for the past, since 1994. So I was a little baby back then. But as you can see here, the top one being detached, the middle one being attached, and the bottom one being condos, that we've kind of hit a peak here. And now we're starting to see it trend downwards. It's just the question is, how far will it go down? I don't know. What are your thoughts? What are you thinking? Now, we've gone over a bunch of information here. We've gone over a lot of stats to give you an idea of what's happening here in Vancouver. But what does this actually mean for you, right? If you're sitting there watching, what the heck should I do now? Well, if you're buying in 2025, I got a few things I want to talk to you about. And so to start it off, basically more listings equal more choices. And so the total listings did come down slightly, but we are still at like a record high for listings. Like I think it was like 40% more listings in over a 10-year average. So we have tons of listings, right? Tons of listings. So you have more choices, so you can literally pick whatever you want. We have less competition equals more time. And so right now, there's not like buyers are there. Don't fool yourself. Like the buyers are there, but there's just less of them that are out in the market right now. So you have more time to go and do what you want, especially now. Like it's beautiful outside. People are out doing stuff. They don't want to buy stuff in the middle of summer. They're out going to the beach, the lakes, the vacations, especially right now. So you have more time if you're thinking about buying here in 2025. And then sellers have to be more negotiable because there's tons of listings. They're a dime a dozen. Like I don't know, you've probably driven around the streets here of Vancouver and you're just like, wow, there's a lot of for sale signs here. And so sellers need to be more negotiable because they have to be. And then prices are trending downwards. We're seeing this in the data. We've seen this in the graphs. So my question is like, how far will they go down? If you have to buy right now, it's not a bad time. Now, if you can wait, potentially the prices will be even lower. And so it really just depends on your situation, your life situation. And then the last one here, which I always would recommend, regardless of the market conditions, is still important to get pre-approved. Because the last thing you want to do is go look at some homes, especially now that you're in a buyer's market here. The data says we're not. The data says we're in a balanced market, but I think we're in a buyer's market. And you don't want to go around looking at homes and then realize like, well, shoot, I can't afford what I'm looking at. And so go get pre-approved and like go to like a couple mortgage brokers or go to your bank, go to a mortgage broker, just get an overall idea and then pick the best one that you think you want to work with. Now, if you're selling in 2025, in the next couple months or really in the next, in the fall here, I have some things that I want to say to you. And so right at the top here, you need to price it right from the start. I've seen it way too many times, and all the realtor people that I talk to is that you have a lot of listings that you're competing with, right? And so the last thing you want to do is like the market's here, and then you price it up here. And then especially that where we're at now is that once you realize, okay, we should, a couple weeks go by and you need to reduce your price to where the market was, but now the market's down here. And then you just start doing this chasing effect where it's just unfortunate sometimes, because I even had it with a client recently. Um, that exact same scenario happened, and we had an offer that's higher than what it's currently listed at right now. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that you've heard of that happening. So please, please, please price right from the beginning. You don't have to be like crazy low unless you're like really need to, offload the property, then that's on you. But just price right from the start. And then you need to make your home stand out. And so as we've seen there again, what I've touched on a few times is that the amount of active listings here in Vancouver is there's a lot. And so you drive down the street, you're going to see a bunch. So why should the buyers pick your home? Well, it doesn't have any problems. It doesn't have any issues. It's, move in ready. The list could go on, right? So you want to make your home stand out so that you are the best option. And then be ready for longer sale times, right? Properties are staying on the market for a long time. There's lots of properties on there that you look at this history, it's like, wow, okay, it's listed at 2 million, listed at 1.9, listed at 1.8, listed at 1.6. Like it's been on there for a while, especially if you're trying to, let's say, get top dollar, you're going to be on the market for a while. And the next one is you need to be flexible on your terms, right? You can't just be a stick in the mud and it's like, it's my way or the highway, because it's just, the market is not in your favor right now. And so you need to be flexible. Doesn't mean you need to be walked over, but you just want to be flexible with the negotiations and not just, put up a front and this is what I want and that's that. So that's what I would say to that. And then you need to know your reason for selling, right? If you're going to list your home for sale here in the next month or the next whatever it is, you just want to know, because there's a lot of competition out there right now. And what could happen is you could have that thing where you're just chasing the market down, or the buyers aren't just there for your type of property because maybe it's unique or who knows what. It's going to get painful at some point, and you're going to get annoyed of all the showings. You're going to get annoyed of like not having any offers. The last thing you want to do is go through all of this, jump through all these hoops just to pull it off the market down the road. Now, again, if your life changes and something happens, that's more than fine. Like, trust me, that I'm more than happy to take it off the market if you were working with me. Not an issue. But you just don't want to go through all that and then take it off the market. Now, maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't. I tend to get people commenting all the time on their opinions and how I'm wrong or how I'm whatever. So I find it interesting. But if you have an opinion, or if you think you know what's going to happen here in the next little while, just drop a comment. Let me know. I'm always interested in what the feedback and people are seeing out there themselves. And if you are thinking about buying or thinking about selling here in Vancouver, I'm more than happy to help you. I got a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of people that I have connections with that could help you if I couldn't help you, because I'm out here in the Now, we went over a lot of information here, and maybe some of it you agree with me, maybe some of it you don't. So just let me know in the comments, as I'm always interested in. Now, we've went over a lot of information here, and maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't. Just let me know in the comments, because I always tend to get someone who thinks they know better than I do, and that's more than okay. So let me know in the comments here if you have any ideas of what's going to happen here in Vancouver. I'm always interested to hear what other people are seeing out in the market. And if you are thinking about buying or selling, I'm more than happy to assist you. Just link in the description there. We can hop on a call and chat and see if it makes sense to work together. But if you want to stay up to date on what's happening here in Vancouver, I'm going to be coming out with these types of videos every month so you can stay on top of what's happening in the market. But if you want to do that, just hit the like and subscribe button. And as always, I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you in the next one.